Hello, 5B students. Today we're going to start our book. I'm really excited about it, actually. It's such a great book. So I want you to make your paper in the Cornell Notes style, like we did before. So I draw my line down, and then I draw another line across the top, and another line across the bottom. And then on the line on the top, I'm going to put the date. So perhaps you're doing this tomorrow. I think that's the 20th. I'm going to put the title of whatever it is that I'm taking notes over. In this case, it's Indian No More, our novel by, I forget the author's name. Let me see. Charlene Willen McManus. Charlene Willing McManus. Okay, so please write that on your note sheet. You will submit your note sheet at the end of today, so please make sure to take these notes with me. What we're going to do today is called a preview, so write that please on your note sheet, a preview. This is this prefix, a little piece of word that has meaning. Pre means before. View means to see. The root here, so we say before see. And in this case, what we mean when we say before see, we are going to look at some information about the book before we start reading the book. You will start reading the book this week. One of the things we're going to look at, in fact, I'm going to share now some images. This is the book you needed to buy. And the first thing we're going to look at as we preview the book, what is the setting? In English, a novel. Let's go back to this for a moment. A novel usually means a book that is fiction. A novel is fiction. Usually. That means a story that somebody made. Now, in fact, this novel is a true story of the main character's life, but she changed the names of the people in the story from her real life. And she changed a few details, but in fact, it's the true story of the woman who wrote this novel. It is the true story of her life and the things that happened in her life. So in a novel, in a fiction story, or in a novel, in a story, let me say, we have the setting. Setting, please, I write that on your paper. I know it's really small there, right? Setting. Setting means the time and place of the novel, of the story. The time of this story is 1954. 1954. The place is Oregon. That's south of Seattle. Oregon. It's got 3 syllables. Oregon. Oregon. And it's the first syllable that is higher and longer, that is stressed. Oregon. Oregon. But particularly, it is in the state of Oregon, in the, please write this, Umpqua Reservation. Umpqua Reservation. Reservation. Now, Umpqua, you might be saying, what is Umpqua? Umpqua is the name of her, the author's, tribe of people, the Umpqua people. So this reservation is the land upon which the Umpqua people live. Another important part of a book of a story. Let me say, some books don't have characters, but this one does. Another important part of this book and of a story are the characters. Please write characters. I'm writing that in my notes here. Characters. So we have some wonderful characters here in this book. The narrator, let's write that first. The narrator is the person telling the story. If it's a person who says I a lot, then we call that narrator first person. When they tell the story and they say, I did this, I did that, my family did this, it's called first person. And so the narrator in this story, her name is Regina. And she is 8 years old when the story starts. She's 8 years old. Okay, so she's the most important character in our novel that we will read. Regina also has a sister named Teresa, but everyone calls her sister Pee-wee, and that's her nickname. When we say nickname, in English, it means a special name your family or friends call you. Not everyone has a nickname. I don't have a nickname, but some people do. Pee-wee is Regina's younger sister. We also have Regina's mom, dad, and her grandmother. So her mom, her dad, her grandmother, but in English it's very common to say grandma, grandma, grandma. We also have her uncle, who is her brother, her father's brother, Uncle Harlan. So these are important characters in our novel that you're going to read, but the narrator is Regina. Now, you don't need to write this part unless you want to, but I think this is helpful for understanding the novel. So I'm going to share it now on my screen. Sometimes it's helpful to, when you are reading, a good reading strategy is to have a picture, an image in your mind of your characters, of your people in your story. Remember, your characters mean people in the story. So in English, that's what it means. So the grandmother's name is Chick. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's the grandmother's name. I'm going to write that actually beside the grandmother. She has long gray hair, but at one point in the story, she cuts all of her hair off because the grandfather, her husband, he dies. And in her culture, it is a way to show your sadness for your loss, for someone's death, by cutting your long hair short. Pee-wee has waist-long straight hair worn in braids. Braids are when you twist the hair together. Their mother is not a native Umpqua person, an indigenous person. Their mother is Portuguese, and she has dark brown eyes and dark brown hair. Their father is an Umpqua native person. He is described as having a big frame. That means he is tall. He has a buzz cut. So notice the grandmother had long hair. You will see that Regina and Pee-wee have long hair. In this novel, people's hair will communicate different ideas about traditions. But a buzz cut, I'm trying to draw it for you here, is when someone's hair, particularly men do this more traditionally, is cut very short. And he is described as being handsome, just like my picture here. The narrator is Regina, and she has also waist-long straight hair worn in braids. Braids are when we twist the hair together. That's what that means in English. It's twisted like that. And then waist long. This means if her hair, if this is Regina's head, her braids are on her head, her braids go, her hair is so long, it goes down to her waist. So it's very long, essentially. That's what they're telling us, is her hair is very long. So now we can have a picture, a little, of these people who we will follow their lives and learn about them. There is other information I want to tell you about before you start your reading. Chick, the grandmother, is a storyteller. She remembers stories from her culture, Umpqua, traditional stories. She remembers these stories. They have wisdom, the stories. They have power. They are the tradition that she wants to hand down to her children. She's also an excellent seamstress. A seamstress is someone who makes clothing. So she can make clothing. She's an excellent seamstress. We also learn that Regina's father is a World War II veteran. This means he went away, he fought in Europe in World War II in the 1940s. And his brother also is a World War II veteran. A veteran is someone who fought in a war. So they are both veterans of war. It's important to understand a little the setting of our story a little bit more carefully. So this is a map from the book. The reservation where the Umpqua people, including Regina and her family, live is here in Oregon. Here's our state, Washington. We are up here in the corner. So this is very local, this story. It is about people in our Puget Sound region. That's where Regina and her family start. But for reasons that you will learn when you read, they are forced to leave their home and they go to live in Los Angeles, California. And so it shows you their journey, where they start, where they finish during the book. I put this here so you can see all of these different names are indigenous people from the Americas. There were very, very many different people. Now, the language that Regina speaks is English. She speaks English at home. She speaks English at school, but her grandmother and other people in the tribe still speak their own native language called Chinook Wawa. And you will see her grandmother use these words in the book from time to time. This is a picture of the author herself in front of the Confederate Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon, in front of a sign in the reservation. And this is a picture of the author herself in 1953 and her sister Peely and their two friends in LA, in Los Angeles. And you will learn a lot about these two friends also in the book. So in the course of the book, you will learn that on November 22nd in 1983, after nearly 30 years, oh, wait, I'm not going to read that because that's further on in the story. But I am going to get you started on the first chapter with two pieces of information that I think is really important for you to understand before you start reading these first chapters. So let's write on our notes here. I will show you my note sheet a little more closely so that you can see, and then I will come back to my slides. Okay, so I'm using a different color pen so that I can really see where I have stopped here. In fact, I think I will go back and highlight because that helps me see the different pieces of information that I have in my notes. Now, as you're writing your notes over here, maybe you had some questions while I was talking. Maybe you didn't hear, and so maybe over here you write Umpqua. Remember, this is for your questions and your thoughts. Now in your notes, please write chapter 1, 2, and 3, because I want to give you some information about what you will read that will be helpful, I think helpful for you to understand the book. Because understanding is more than just understanding the words. Sometimes you need to know the information, the context. What are they really referring to? What are they talking about? So the title of the first chapter is The Walking Dead. That's dramatic. Wow, The Walking Dead. What does it mean? And what you will learn in the chapter is the story of the Umpqua people. Please write this with me. The story of the Umpqua people before. So you will learn the story of how the Umpqua people were forced to leave their traditional land and go to the reservation. Oops, reservation. You will learn that this happened in the past, in the 1800s. I forget exactly what year. Might need to change my line here. And you will also learn about the Indian, I think it's called registry. So I'm going to show you that right now in a picture. You see this picture here in the corner, and it has a list of names. And this is a list that the United States government would keep a list of people's names and of their tribe. It may be very hard to see, but it says tribe here. So what tribe they are. Umpqua, I can't really see that. I wonder if I can focus in on that. I'll put another picture on the canvas if I'm able. This one says ancestor. So this one is what ancestor is the Native American ancestor. And this one says rules of eligibility. This means what rules allow this person to say they are a Native American. So the government keeps these records. And then when people have reservation land or people are Native American, they need to be on this list. And you will hear how, which is interesting because if they have been here for thousands of years, but now the government says you can only be Native if you are on our list and meet our requirements. So you will hear how the government decides to eliminate, to get rid of, to tell many people that they are no longer on this list, and therefore the government doesn't see them as Indigenous or Native anymore. So there is a very painful loss of identity for these people, and that relates to the title. The second title is Res Life, and res is short for reservation. So in the second chapter, Regina tells us about her life on the reservation with her family and with her community. She describes what the reservation looks like. She describes the activities of the people. Here's a modern Umpqua person, and here's a drawing from long ago of an Umpqua person. So she will describe the reservation for the reader so that we can learn about the place she lives. She will tell us about her home on the reservation. And she also mentions the Sasquatch monster that she is afraid of. You will see this Sasquatch around in different places in Seattle because it's an old story about a monster that lives in the forests and mountains of the Pacific Northwest. Some people believe it's true. Many people do not. You will also read about how the Native American people are told to leave their reservation and how that causes them to fight each other and against the government. So in divisions, you will learn how the government is asking the people, is telling the people to leave their land. And lastly, in chapter 4, I wanted to mention that the title is called The Oregonian, which, is a real newspaper in Oregon. It's a newspaper, so the title is about the newspaper, and you will read important news that the family reads in the newspaper. So let's write the titles of the chapters that you need to read on our notes. So we'll write that here. Chapter 1, 2, and 3. In fact, yeah, let's leave it at 1, 2, and 3. That's fine for now. I will go look at our chart and see what I sketched out for us. We need to do a lot of reading now. So we saw the Indian registry. Oh, let's put here in chapter 2 and 3, we learn about life on the Umpqua reservation. So those are the big ideas that you will be reading about in chapter 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so here, usually we summarize what we have talked about in our notes. But instead of doing that, well, I will. A novel, let's do that, in fact, always has a setting which in English, when we say setting and we talk about a novel, which means the time and place, and characters. So we say that word in English, characters, characters, and characters. Okay, so, and then here we will read chapters 1 through 3 this week. There you go. So that will end your notes there. Now, maybe you had some thoughts, some questions, some ideas, some vocabulary that you didn't understand, you want to ask about, put that here. And these will be mostly what your notes look like. Let's see if I can go back up a little. There you go. You can always pause that if you need to look at that a little more. Okay, thank you.